This week's 48 Hours has a story of a woman who appeared to die twice. Friends of Mindy Casotis were told she lost her life in a hospital. 5 months later, they heard her life ended in a very different way. Erin Moriarty for 48 Hours reports.
The mystery began in 2022 in a remote South Georgia swamp where hunters made a gruesome discovery. They found the remains of a woman. Authorities put out 2 sketches. Heather Thomas saw one of them.
I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That looks like Mindy.
The woman in the sketch was identified as Mindy Casotus. Heather knew Mindy because Mindy had married her ex-husband, Nick Casotus, a lawyer, a decorated Navy JAG who had traveled the world, sometimes working on secret assignments. Mindy's friends, Angela Wynn and Morgan Paddock, say a year into the marriage, the couple's once happy life began to change.
She once told me, Morgan, if you knew everything that was going on, like this is something that would be a best-selling novel.
They say Mindy told them they were being followed and harassed. It was, according to Mindy, all connected to some classified cases Nick had worked on during his time in the Navy. In late 2022, Mindy's friends were shocked to learn that Mindy had died suddenly in a hospital. But 5 months later, they heard that Mindy's remains had been discovered in that Georgia swamp.
Joining us now from New York is Erin Moriarty with 48 Hours. Erin, how did Mindy's friends think she died?
Well, Jesus, they believed her husband. She had told them she was pregnant, so when her husband called and said that she had had health problems and had died in a hospital and was cremated, they did believe it. And so imagine their surprise when 5 months later, they are told, they get calls that, in fact, this unidentified woman who had been found in a swamp was their friend Mindy. It just didn't make any sense.
Now, Mindy's husband, let's talk about him. How did he explain how his wife ended up in the Georgia swamp?
Well, obviously, the prosecutor said when you have someone who's dismembered in a swamp, that does mean there was a homicide. So they wanted to talk to the husband. He has a lot of credibility. He's a former naval officer. He's a lawyer. And he told them a very similar story to what Mindy had been telling her friends, that for years they had been followed and harassed and surveilled. And so he put the blame on a FBI agent that he said was Jim McIntyre, and that was his story. He said it and stuck with that story through 2 different interrogations.
Now, this isn't your average alibi. Does Jim McIntyre even exist?
Well, that was the focus of this investigation. That's what made this case so unusual. They went to great lengths to find this Jim McIntyre. They did find a Jim McIntyre, but the big question was whether Nick Casotus was telling the truth or whether he had just come up with a rather novel explanation for the murder of his wife.
Definitely one to watch this weekend. Thank you so much. You can go watch 48 Hours tomorrow night at 9 right here on CBS 19.